Where was Daddy? Because Daddy's supposed to be there to protect you. And so, because that's what we say in this work, right? Fathers need to be involved because they protect little girls, and they are supposed to be there to ensure that this kind of thing doesn't happen to their little girls. And somehow it still happens.
Well, can I just, well, first and foremost, my father is the best, most wonderful man. I'm sure, and I really would hope that all children will feel this way at some point about their dads. My father is my best friend, and I love him dearly. But in cases such as mine's, especially for the other daddy's girls that are out here, the last person that I wanted to find out that I was being abused was my father. Simply because I knew that my father was not going to ask any questions. He wasn't going to follow the letter of the law. There would have been street justice, if you will, and he would have gladly spent the rest of his natural life in prison for murdering this guy, for hurting me. And so because I knew that, because I knew that my relationship with my father was far more important, and I could not, fathom, and I still can't imagine not being able to access my dad, not being able to pick up the phone and talk to him, not be able to hug him, and not be able to see him and have dinner with him. I couldn't fathom that. Even if I knew, okay, yeah, he's in prison for protecting me, that was a road that I knew that I could never travel, and I knew that I could never be in this world, the way that I am without my father. And so I chose to just be very tactful and strategic about getting out. And that's one of the things that I really pride myself on in terms of the organization is strategic safety planning. How do you get out? How do you get out smart? How do you get out safe? But just to go back a second and talk about my dad, believe it or not, as much as I thought I was hiding stuff from my father, he knew something wasn't right with me because he knows me. And I can't remember, it's a quote that says, it is a wise father that knows his own child. And so there were times when my dad would call me and say, come on over, let's sit in the garden. We'd sit in the garden, we'd have smoothies, a glass of wine, whatever. And he would just begin to talk to me, and I'm like, how does he know this? What is he talking about? And even though I was like, oh no, everything is great, everything is fine, he knew. In fact, I remember one day he called me specifically and he told me to move. He said, there's something about this guy that I don't know what it is, he said, but he isn't like anyone that I've ever met before. And so when my father speaks, I listen, hands down, because I know that if there's one person on this planet that's going to make sure that I am okay, whose word I can take to the bank, it's my dad. And so the fact that he's never told me what to do, but in this instance, for him to say, I want you to pack up your things and move immediately, like not next week, not next month, and the very next day, I went and secured me a place and I moved. I did precisely what my father told me. Unfortunately, I went back. I didn't discuss that with my dad. And so now that I'm away from that person and years have passed, I remember having a conversation with my father, and I said, well, Dad, the next time I get into a relationship, before I get serious, you have to meet him before I get serious, not after I get serious, because I'm going to present him how I want you to see him. I need for you to have that insight. I need for you to look at this person and tell me. And so we definitely agreed. But he to this day, he's still very, 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 very furious about what happened to me. And although the person is completely out of my life, incarcerated, my dad is still very angry about it, rightfully so, and so I really don't tell him everything that I've experienced. I could tell thousands of people at a conference, but telling my dad is just like, ugh. because, and I didn't want him to be disappointed. More importantly, I really didn't, because he raised me better than that. You know, he had expectations of me, and more importantly, he modeled a certain type of behavior. So that's one thing that I really must say to all these fantastic fathers out here. On one hand, you love us and you show us chivalry and what a gentleman is like, and a protector and a man should be. And so sadly, we think that all men are like that. You know, we just have this whole thing where, okay, he's gonna be like my dad. And in the beginning, he probably is. You know, it'll be whoever he needs to be in order to get you where he needs to get you. And then it just goes downhill. And so I like to humbly suggest to fathers, while you're taking her out and opening the car door for her and saying, you know, certain things and affirming who she is and adoring her, also talk to her about, you know, what'll happen when someone says something really subtle to you. What happens when someone tries to undermine you and break you down emotionally and psychologically before it even gets to the physical part, you know, because the physical comes later. I realized for myself, to be honest with you, I was in a 4-year relationship with this person, 2 of which he never laid a hand on me. The last 2, it was when it became violent and it was hard for me to get away and all that stuff. But the first 2 years, but when I thought about it, I was like, oh my God, he was abusive the entire time. I just didn't see it coming, because here I am, you know, I feel so bad, I'm so sorry, you had a hard life, your mother wasn't there, and your parents were this, and oh my goodness. And look at what happened.